How does it work for Ming? I mean, do you start from the customers or do you start from just what does Mingken want to produce?
Fundamentally, Ming is a selfish undertaking.
Hey everyone, this is Cam from Deluxe. Very excited to have Praneeth from Ming over here at our boutique with the rest of the AHA members. Praneeth, welcome to Singapore. Welcome to Deluxe. Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you for having us. Congratulations on the new space.
Thank you.
It looks fantastic.
Very glad that you guys are here this weekend. I know a lot of Singaporeans people based in Singapore are excited to see your watches. So I'm going to start on with asking about the GPHG win. So last year you guys won that for the Bluefin. And back in 2019, the 1706 Copper won the award as well. What do you feel is the significance of such a win for the brand?
Honestly, winning a GPHG is an honor. It's always good to have some validation that Ming's vision and our take on watchmaking has some legs. Every launch is just as anxious, anxiety-inducing, and like nervousness, and everything is just the same as day one. If you don't feel that before each launch, you haven't pushed whatever aspect of the product far enough because you haven't tried something new. If you try something new, that means you're taking a lot of risk. I think winning the GPHG it's one of many pieces of validation saying, hey, like you guys are heading in the right direction.
Yeah. Do you feel differently about the Bluefin winning versus the first win back in 2019?
Funny story about the Bluefin and the Copper as well. For various operational, logistical, supply chain reasons, these were some of our most painful products. So I think within the team, and at least for Ming, it's like a bittersweet thing where it's like, I guess it's worth it because you went through all this pain and at least it was recognized. But you always ask yourself, would you rather not have gone through that pain? Bluefin was not supposed to look like Bluefin. There was a completely different design that didn't happen for a whole bunch of reasons. And Ming had to redesign it in 24 hours. We had to rush prototypes in like 3 to 4 weeks and basically scramble to relaunch an effectively new watch within 2 months.
And that watch went on to win the GPHG.
We went on to win the GPHG. So we're still trying to figure out what that means. Does it mean like every time you're going to win a GPHG, you have to have this like
this crisis moment
with the watch? I hope not. It doesn't feel different in the sense that they both feel equally significant. Of course, externally, we do notice a difference. You always remember your first. Because back in 2019, they would actually tell you 2 days before the event that you'd won. I guess because they want to make sure you'd show up.
Yeah.
I remember when we got the call, we were in Switzerland, we were at lunch with actually the Schwarzetian at that point, the CEO of Schwarzetian, who's now part of the MING.
Yep.
And so like that is something I'll always remember. Bluefin we didn't know until it happened. And I'll remember Bluefin because Ming basically arrived in Geneva an hour before the ceremony started. And there's a picture in our private work chat of Ming like literally like falling asleep because of jet lag.
At the ceremony.
Right. And a lot of people were like, oh, Ming looked surprised when he won. I was like, A, because he actually was surprised. We didn't know this time. And B, because he was so jet lagged. I think he was like half asleep when they called him up.
I remember when we met at Geneva Watch Days, we were chatting about this and you were up against Tudor as well, in the same category. And something you told me was like, oh, how many times has Tudor not won when they were in the category?
Yeah, it's one of those things where given who we were up against, we obviously believe in our product and we put it in because we think it was a strong contender and it deserved to win, but we're also biased.
I mean, this is the 8th year of Ming. Honestly, it feels like much longer given how many products you guys have done.
We haven't done a count recently, but I think it's about 75 references that are released, including a couple of dial variants and all of that, which is what, an average of 9 to 10 per year.
I mean, that's one of the things I really admire about the brand. I've always looked up to Ming as a brand that really pushes the boundaries. Even when we talk about design language, when you look at a watch from Ming, you know it's a Ming. And that's one of the things that I find not many brands can really do well. But clearly for Ming, you found your own design language. In the early days, there was a lot of talk about Ming's design language, but I think recently, we haven't seen as much of that. How would you say has the design language evolved, changed over the years?
In terms of the sheer number of references we put out and evolution of design language, it felt like we were maybe moving a little too fast. So the watch you're wearing, which is the 2001 Series 2, which is an Argentgraph, it's a case that I know for Ming, he looks at and he's like, this feels old. It feels like I can move past this. And then I go to events, someone picks up a 20 Series case. They go, this is fantastic. I've never seen this case. How did you guys machine the case? How do you make the lugs without the gap and all of this stuff? The way I look at it is Ming is the one he does all the design. That helps with the single identity. But what that means is there is a gap between what Ming as the creator sees when he looks at the product line and me, who is probably the person who works closest to him. And then there's a gap between me and the rest of the team, who then sees another filtered layer of that product vision. And then there's a gap between that and maybe the hardcore Ming collectors who are interacting with us, they're following every small thing we do. And then there's a gap between that and the larger watch community, which in itself is a tiny sort of pond in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so by the time you filter through all those layers, you realize that sometimes you can move too quickly, and then people don't quite understand. They're like, yes, I recognize it's a Ming, but I don't understand enough. And so I'm stuck in this limbo where, yes, I know it's a Ming, but what's a Ming?
Right.
In terms of design language, we actually have design language 2 and 3 available in parallel in the launch cycle or collection at this point. The 20 series case and 29, which our world timer goes in, I think is a fantastic case. I think it would be a shame to retire it very soon. The 29 as well has the open work lugs, 27, 29, and 20. And then 37 is an entirely different take. It was a more classical approach to case design, sizing. Later this year, you'll see our 5th generation case. So you'll have 2nd, 3rd, and 5th at the same time. It's also an evolution of how we think about design language, because we would think about it as you finish one, you're done, move on. And I took a step back and said, that also only works if you're effectively running a brand like a passion project, where it's like, we do 2 models a year. This isn't really our primary calling, and this is not what we're doing. When you built an independent brand that's sort of bigger than the person who dreamt about it and started it, and now has 8,000 customers worldwide, 15,000 watches shipped, team of 14, 15 people directly, I think it's time to evolve that way of thinking. All design is evolution, and just because you have design language 5 out there doesn't mean that 2 is outdated. It means that they're all different flavors.
If you were to simplify it, how would you describe the brand or your products to someone who's just getting into Ming?
I would like to think we make watches that everyone can appreciate. I know it's a tough one for Ming as a designer, but often we'll see comments, for example, during the launch where they go, not for me, but I appreciate this exists. And I think it's easy to get stuck on the not for me bit, which is valid because design is subjective. And also we're doing new things that people may take time to get used to. The simplest way I can put it is it's taking 2 to 3 centuries of watchmaking, mechanical watchmaking, and putting it in the context of the age we live in. We've had our take on guilloche, our take on various other classical concepts, but they're always done in a way that it could only be made today and now. Right? Project 21, our black box project, is a good example because it's sized and designed to be like a vintage dress watch, but the case couldn't have been made 40, 50 years ago. That dial, the multi-layer dial, would not have been possible even 10 years ago. That's what Ming is. It's good design, solid watchmaking in the modern age.
I wanted to dive into how the product development comes about. I mean, you talked about that a little bit. For example, for us, a lot of our product development or product design is driven by customers. We hear what people say that they want, and then we see if it's possible for us to make something like that. How does it work for Ming? I mean, do you start from the customers, or do you start from just what does Ming can want to produce?
Fundamentally, Ming is a selfish undertaking. And what that means is we don't make things we don't like. Usually Ming as a person, but also sometimes the team will have discussions, and it's not a one-way street, right?
Right.
There is some degree of, it's a conversation. But yes, Ming will originate ideas. That bit has not changed from day one, and I don't want it to ever change.
Right.
I want it to be selfish because that's what helps people look at a Ming and go, that's a Ming. That's what helps you take certain risks that you wouldn't take otherwise.
And that's where the passion comes in.
That's where the passion comes in. To be passionate is to be selfish to some degree, right? Now that we have at any given point 20 to 25 watches in various stages of development, now what we do is, and Ming has more designs than that, we say, here are all the designs that Ming likes. We also have to run a commercial business. We also have a community of supporters and collectors. When we put all these 3 pieces together, of these 50 designs, what makes sense? But it all comes from Ming selfishly designing first.
I agree that I think that's a good way to go forward. If you're making something that you don't believe in and you're just trying to capture demand, then that will never feel as close or personal.
At least you want to make something that you're willing to stand behind and say, I believe in this product.
When you guys started out, it was right before COVID. During COVID, I think it's really when Ming took off quite a lot. All of those years, I think for most of your 8 years, you've been an online-only brand. Whereas this year, or starting from this year, I think you introduced retailers as well. Do you think it's just a natural evolution for brands?
I think when it comes to the process and the user and customer experience, that's where we adopt the listen to what your community wants. Over the pandemic, the biggest thing we found was watches in general went crazy. And a big problem at that point happened to be like just bots. Being on Shopify and being in an ecosystem where there was an entire sort of shadow economy of like apps and stuff that were just built around flipping and scalping and all of that, it definitely became a problem for us. The other thing I quickly realized, and it's continuing to be a challenge we're figuring out how to address, is e-commerce may be a big thing in the world, but luxury e-commerce is still a very, very nascent sub-industry. How do you give an online experience that's as premium and well thought out as you might in person? Sort of old school luxury brands, they don't really do e-commerce, right? It got to a point where I couldn't blame customers for feeling mad when they said, hey, I had this in cart, and by the time I could put in my cart details, it said it was sold out. That's fine if you're buying something off Amazon, it's not fine when you're buying a $5, $20, $50,000 watch. So at that point, given what the market conditions were like, we invested six figures, like mid six figures, into building out the system, doing all of that stuff.
Shit, that's a lot.
Yeah, right. And maybe could have done a bit less or whatever. We made mistakes. We learned along the way. But our focus was, this is what we need to do first. You have to handle watches. You have to put them on. It's the same reason we were talking earlier about the flagship boutique here, right? Where people can walk in. You have the strap wall, right? You could have chosen not to do the strap wall, and I'm sure it'd be more economical. But it's a very different experience, right? And I think it's the same thought for us, where we're like, yes, we started online, but our intention was never to remain solely online, because watches cannot be an online experience only.
How about events? Do you see Ming taking part in more? Like, there's just so many watch fair these days, right? Every other week there's an event somewhere.
The short answer is yes. This is back to the watches are offline. I do know that my calendar from like August to December is basically like, it seems like a different country every week or something.
I mean, you certainly have a global audience, so I'm sure your customers in all these different places would appreciate that you guys are going out.
And there's also this challenge of, you obviously want to go where people have supported you, because again, being online and having never met them, all of those things. But then you also want to go to places where you can meet new people, build a new community. For any form of offline experience that we can think of, we'd like to invest more in. And our online experience will evolve as well. For starters, we're working on now moving away from the cart hold. So one of the trade-offs with the cart hold, if I didn't want it to get like unreasonably expensive in terms of setting up the system, was to get rid of having an actual cart. So right now, if you go to the Ming website, you can't add multiple items to the cart, but that means you get the cart hold, where once you add it to cart, it's yours. We don't need cart holds as much anymore. What we do need is the option to say, hey, I'd like to just order 3 straps at once and not run my cart 3 times. So that's a simple thing that we're investing in. The other one is, we're thinking about user accounts or like customer accounts, warranties. A lot of these stuff are digital these days. To me, it builds into the online experience, because it's how do you bring other friends and other partners into that ecosystem and make it a bit more seamless for your customers too.
I think 8 years of Ming, definitely when you guys started, a lot of emphasis was on the product side of things. But these days, it feels like you're doing a lot more. I mean, as the CEO, when you think about the next few years, what does that really look like for Ming?
The next few years is continuing to make amazing product, but having better diversification. So we've done a lot of watches under 5,000 Swiss francs, and we've done quite a few about 20,000. Not that much between 5 and 20, which is a very glaring gap. The 5th generation case that I said will come out later this year will be in the mid-range, so between 5 and 10. Regardless of what sort of expression of watchmaking or complication you're looking at, there should be a Ming take on it.
When we see a lot of brands, they tend to stay within the price bracket. If you're a over 20,000 kind of brand, you stay in the bracket. If you're under 10K, you stay in the bracket. Over here, we see really watches from a full range of price points. What's the idea or the thinking behind this?
And we've always said we want to try and make watchmaking that has good value. But value is not the same as price. So if someone came to you tomorrow and offered to sell you the Mona Lisa for 50 million, the original Mona Lisa from the Louvre at 50 million, that's not cheap, but it's very good value. But for me, I'm the youngest on the founding team. When we started Ming, I was still in my last semester at university. The first Ming I bought at the 1701 was like a lot of hours worked on campus, minimum wage in the US, right? The second watch I bought, which is watch number 2, was my first full 2 months of paycheck at Ming. I was fortunate that I was able to even do that. So it's important to me that I call it sort of the staircase of independent watchmaking or whatever. If independent, exciting watchmaking is only $50,000 and above, or whatever that number is, how are you going to get new people excited about it? How are you going to get new people into watches? Not everybody wakes up tomorrow with the ability and the interest to spend 30, 40, 50 grand on their first independent watch. I'm guilty of this too, but like, we as watch collectors and enthusiasts, we're quite fond of like criticizing the industry as a whole for not having exciting watches, and sometimes it's valid, sometimes it's not. And so I think for me, it's important that we make accessible watches that are exciting. As hard as it gets, we're going to continue to try and have watches at least at 4 to 5K, always.
Honestly, think it's very respectable how the brand has managed to straddle across price point, because the customers that you're talking to are very different. When you're talking about a 5K watch versus a 20K, 30K watch. And the consistency in the design language is very apparent throughout as well. Maybe let's talk about some of the actual watches here. We have some new pieces here. Let's start with the World Timer. And this is the new World Timer. Maybe you could introduce this a little bit, talk about it.
This is the 2901. This is the 3rd iteration of the 2901. So we did the original World Timer 2 years ago. Then we did the Dubai edition. even though I can't read most of the dial, is one of my favorite watches and I wear it a lot. And this is a sportier take on the world timer. We call it the Midnight because it's got a DLC case, black dial. Well, I call it gilt numbers, but it's not actually gold. It's just gold colored. And then the movement is also gold plated. So back to product development, this is one of those things where I think if you put on a hat and said, would customers want this? It was unlikely this watch would be made. I remember when we launched 2901, I was just like, Ming, what if you just DLC'd the case and made it black? And he's like, yeah, that seems interesting. Like, let's prototype it. So then it came out and a couple of customers saw it and they're like, this is really cool. And we're like, we're not sure if we'll make it or not. They're like, you're crazy. You have to make these. And so that's how this came about. So yeah, from a product perspective, this is what I mean by being selfish. It's like, we'll start things because we just think the idea is cool. And then luckily, other people also find it cool. And we're like, okay, how many can we make?
The original 1902, I think, was already very beautiful. I think it's very unique to be able to see the evolution. Even though this is a 40mm case, it's still very wearable for, like, I have a 16.5 cm wrist, and it's pretty thick on specs. But
Yes.
like when you actually wear it, it's very wearable.
So I think Ming has a similarly sized wrist and his, back to being a selfish undertaking, he's like, I'm not going to make design a watch I can't wear. And for that, funnily enough, an interesting anecdote, when we first designed the case, that was one of the first cases being designed in 3D CAD. And he still wasn't at the point where he could engineer a complete case, right? So he just did the externals and then we'd have a case partner who'd get more involved in the engineering at that point. They came back and said it had to be 42. And it was a 3-month fight to get it down to 41 and a half because Ming wanted it at 41.
3 months just to shave off 0.5.
Yeah, because we're like, I don't understand why you can't do it. And in fact, that's one of the projects that annoyed him enough into being like, you know what, I'm going to learn how to engineer cases myself. And now what happens with every new product made is Ming will do, of course, the design, and then he'll design the case in 3D CAD. And we now have a 3D printing workshop in KL. So he'll print the cases to sort of wear and test how they wear. And then he'll print them in like larger than life to validate that the construction works, like they can all go together the way he envisions it. And so by the time it's sent off to the actual case producer, it's like basically proven it can be done.
You just need to manufacture.
You just need to figure out how to make it, like manufacture it within budget and all of that.
Yeah.
You can't come back and tell me that it can't be made.
I mean, I think just that process of like learning and figuring things out to solve the problems really demonstrates the kind of company that Ming is and why you guys have gone the way you've gone in the past few years.
I know when we started this, there were a lot of things we'd look at and we'd say, oh, that's so simple. Why didn't anyone think of that? And then we do it and we're like, that's why people don't do it. 2 days ago when I was in KL, Ming and I bought this like neo vintage, like early 2000s watch because we'd heard a lot of good things about the bracelet on that watch. It was apparently at one point one of the world's most comfortable bracelets and everything else, and they stopped making it because it was too expensive. And we bought the watch and we took it apart. Very quickly realized why that bracelet is impossible to make. But to remove one link, you need 6 very tiny screws, and the link is actually 5 pieces.
Yeah.
And we immediately, Ming and I both looked at it and go, yeah, we're not doing this. 6 years ago, we wouldn't have had the budget to even buy that watch.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have had the foresight to be like, maybe let's try and look at it first before we try and recreate it. And we would have tried to recreate it and had a very painful series of lessons.
So you're a bit smarter about how you do things these
Yes.
days.
Yes.
I want to bring the discussion back to the Argent Graph. You're wearing something new.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
So this is our new Argent Graph for 2025. So the Argent Graph for us, or the 2001 for us, has always been the platform with which we've launched new dial technologies. It's our first 20 series in steel. The dial, I think, is one of the coolest dials we've ever made, completely inspired by science fiction. It's a single block of titanium. That whole dial is one piece.
It's one piece?
Yeah, nothing is glued or applied. It's one solid piece. So
Oh.
we start with a solid block of titanium that gets laser milled, and then it's PVD coated for the blue color, and then lasered again to remove the blue on the top.
Oh, so it's
And-
one piece with the blue.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The whole thing is one piece.
Where does the idea for a dial like this come about?
Honestly, I don't know. Like, I know people keep asking, and I don't think Ming knows either. Here's what I've distilled it to. I think if you can actually answer, then you haven't done a good job of pushing yourself.
I mean, just looking at the new Series 5, it looks like many individual pins that are assembled into a blue dial. Now, knowing that it's one piece, even then I still can't really connect. I mean, the way that the colors are different and all that. We've chatted a lot. I think just one final question I have. I mean, we're a strap business, and Ming is one of the companies where you guys place so much emphasis on straps and bracelets. I've never seen any other brands do this, right? You first release your own metal bracelets, not for a model specifically, but to cover many different models.
Right.
That's more universal, right? I think you call it the universal bracelet. And then you have the keeperless leather straps. You have your own buckle as well. And then you have now your FKM rubber. Why this obsession with straps and bracelets?
So I think it's the intent of having straps that were swappable. I remember in 2017 when we started, quick release straps were like unheard of. I think for Ming it was important, and for us it was important because we were collectors and enthusiasts ourselves. We assume there are other people like us who would like to swap things about. So we should do that too. We should offer that convenience. So quick release, and every strap comes with a buckle fitted. The bracelet thing, our first bracelet was actually a fitted end link. We did it, and then we're like, the bracelet's really comfortable, but the economics of a fitted end link are terrible. Inevitably, you'll end up in a situation, especially if you're going to make 10 watches a year. You can't have engineer different end links. The other issue with fitted end links is it's not that comfortable for certain wrist sizes because you can't have full articulation. So that's why Ming was like, no, we'll do a universal that fits like our straps. It started there, and then it sort of continued because a watch is also a tactile experience. It can look really cool, it can work well. Even the watch head alone could have great weight or lack of weight, but if it's on the wrong strap, it will never feel good. So having a balanced wearing experience is important.
What I respect is that you guys really think from a customer perspective a lot. Like, yes, you have your own ideas on how things should be done, but at the end of the day, it's how would people wearing it feel?
Yeah.
And it's the entire package. It isn't just the case, it isn't just the movement, the dial, right? It's the whole package, including how it's. Thanks for showing all these pieces and sharing about the business. Because many times people only see products, but
Yes.
people don't hear the stories, the challenges, the decisions that you have to make.
I was having dinner 2 weeks ago at a new restaurant at home in Dubai, and I was sitting with the chef. He was telling me, like, I want people to be able to come down, order food, eat it, go like, this is tasty, and then go home. If you don't want to know what goes into the food, how it's made, what the genesis of this and all of that is, that's fine. It's not important to enjoying the experience. But if you are interested, we can also tell you that. And I think it's the same way I think about our watches. You should be able to sort of pick up a Ming, put it on your wrist, it should make you smile, and you can enjoy it. Without having to know whether it's a single piece of titanium or multiple pieces or whatever else. That's all sort of, for most people, secondary.
No, that's a very good point, and I think that's a good way to end this chat. Our pleasure to have you, and I think the watch community here in Singapore would really love getting hands off with some of these pieces and just talking to you to find out more about your experience.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you, Praneeth.
Very soon.